The observation deck was quiet at this hour. Most of the station's population was asleep, following the artificial day-night cycle that kept humans healthy. Krell stood alone, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The planet was mesmerizing, all those lights twinkling in the darkness. Beautiful, isn't it? He turned to see Yuna approaching. She carried 2 cups of something steaming. I brought tea, she said, offering him one. It's a human drink, relaxing. I thought you might need it. Krell accepted the cup carefully. The liquid inside was warm and smelled pleasant, like plants and flowers. He took a careful sip. It was good, thank you, he said. I find myself unable to sleep. Too many thoughts? Yuna joined him at the window. I understand. This has been a lot to process in just a few days. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Krell spoke the question that had been haunting him since they arrived. How did you do this? Do what? All of it. He gestured at the station, the planet, the space beyond. My people have been exploring the stars for 300,000 years. You've been doing it for barely 12,000, yet you've achieved more than we ever did. How? Yuna was quiet for a long moment, sipping her tea. When she spoke, her voice was soft but intense. We're persistence hunters, Krell. Do you know what that means? He shook his head. Millions of years ago, our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're not the fastest species on Earth, we're not the strongest, but we can run longer than anything else. We don't give up. Ever. That trait is written into our DNA, our culture, our entire way of thinking. She turned to look at him directly. Your ancestors came to our world. They saw us living in caves using stone tools, and they dismissed us. They cataloged us as primitives with no potential. Then they left. I've read the reports, Krell said quietly. It was a mistake. It was more than a mistake. It was an insult. Yuna's eyes held something fierce. Do you know what that insult did to us? It became the greatest motivation in our entire history. She pulled up a holographic display, showing images of ancient human civilizations, cave paintings of beings from the sky, stone carvings of visitors who came and left, stories written in dozens of languages, all telling the same tale. Every generation told their children about the visitors from the stars. Every generation added to the story. And every generation made a promise someday we would prove them wrong. Someday we would reach the stars ourselves and show them what we really were. 500,000 years, Krell whispered. You spent 500,000 years thinking about us? Not just thinking, planning, dreaming, working. Yuna's voice was passionate now. When we learned to farm, someone said it was the first step toward the stars. When we built cities, someone said the visitors would see them and be impressed. When we invented writing, we wrote down our promise. When we created mathematics, we used it to calculate trajectories to other worlds. Every advancement, every discovery, every achievement was connected to that ancient goal. The display changed to show human history in fast motion. Cities rising and falling, empires born and destroyed, wars fought and peace made. Through it all, a thread of constant progress. We nearly destroyed ourselves so many times, Yuna continued. Nuclear war almost ended us. Climate collapse nearly made our planet uninhabitable. Artificial intelligence we created turned against us. Each time we survived by the smallest margin. Each time we learned. Each time we got back up and kept moving forward. Why? Krell asked. Why not just accept a simpler life? Why push so hard? Yuna smiled, but it was sad. Because we refused to stay down. It's who we are. When someone tells us we can't do something, it becomes all we think about. When someone says we're not good enough, we work until we are. When someone dismisses us, we make sure they never do it again. She showed him more images. Humans building their first spacecraft. The first landing on their moon. The first journey to Mars. The first faster-than-light vessel. Each achievement celebrated by billions. We're not special because we're physically strong, Yuna said. We're not special because we're naturally smart. We're special because we refuse to accept limits. Other species discover faster-than-light travel and think good enough. We discover it and immediately start working on making it faster, safer, more efficient. Other species build one space station and call it an achievement. We build hundreds and start planning thousands more. That sounds exhausting, Krell said honestly. It is, but it's also who we are. We can't help it. Yuna looked back at Earth. There's a human philosopher named Jongmin who lived about 1,000 years ago. She wrote something that became very famous. She said, We are not content with the present because we are haunted by the past and driven by the future. We remember what we were told we couldn't be, and we rush toward proving we can be anything. Krell felt a chill run through him. That's a bit frightening. I know, Una said softly. That's what makes us terrifying to other species. Not our weapons or our ships or our numbers. It's that we never stop. We never quit. We never accept defeat as final. She pulled up another image, this one showing the 3 wars humanity had fought. When the Archeth attacked us, they thought we'd surrender after losing a few battles. Instead, we analyzed their tactics, adapted our strategies, and came back stronger. When the Breathen blockaded our colonies, they thought we'd negotiate from weakness. Instead, we broke their blockade in 6 months and then offered them fair peace terms. When the Krell hegemony declared war, they expected a long campaign. We ended it in 8 months and turned them into allies. Each time you could have destroyed them, Krell said, remembering what Admiral Bora had told them. Each time we chose not to, because being terrifying isn't about destruction. It's about making others realize that fighting you is pointless. It's about showing them that you'll win eventually, no matter how long it takes, so they might as well become friends instead. Krell set down his teacup with shaking hands. You're telling me that humanity's greatest weapon is persistence, that you win simply by refusing to lose? Exactly. Una smiled. We don't need to be the strongest or the smartest. We just need to outlast everyone else. And we always do. What if we had stayed? Krell asked suddenly. What if my ancestors had helped you instead of leaving? What if we had guided your development? Una's expression became cold, and for the first time Krell felt genuinely afraid of her. Then we would owe you everything. Every achievement would be tainted by the knowledge that we didn't earn it ourselves. Every star we reached would be one you gave us permission to reach. Every advancement would be because you allowed it. She stepped closer. This way we owe you nothing. We earned every single thing we have. Every ship, every station, every colony, every alliance. All of it is ours because we took it, built it, fought for it, dreamed it into existence. You wanted to prove yourselves, Krell said, understanding flooding through him. We wanted to prove ourselves to you, Una corrected. To the visitors who looked at us and saw nothing worth noticing. We wanted you to come back and find us waiting. We wanted to see your faces when you realized what we'd become. Is this revenge then? No. Una's expression softened. It's validation. It's proof that we were always worth something, even when we lived in caves. It's proof that potential isn't about what you are. It's about what you refuse to stop trying to become. Krell looked out at Earth again. All those lights, all those billions of people, all descended from creatures who lived in caves and hunted with stones, all driven by an ancient insult to become something incredible. We truly did make a terrible mistake, he said quietly. Yes, Una agreed, but perhaps it was the right mistake. Because if you'd stayed, if you'd helped us, we might never have become this. We might have been content with what you gave us. Instead, you left us alone with our dreams and our determination. And look what we built. They stood together in silence, watching Earth turn. Krell finally understood why his empire was afraid. Humanity wasn't terrifying because they were aggressive or cruel. They were terrifying because they were unstoppable. You couldn't defeat them, couldn't discourage them, couldn't make them give up. All you could do was become their friend and hope they never decided you were an obstacle in their path. What happens now? He asked. Now? Una smiled warmly. Now we talk about the future. About trade and treaties and friendship, about what we can build together instead of apart. Because despite everything, we don't want to stand alone. We want friends among the stars. Even after everything we did, especially after everything you did. Because you gave us the greatest gift possible, even if you didn't mean to. You gave us something to prove. And we did. The conference room overlooked Earth from a massive curved window. Thalos stood frozen at the sight. The planet glowed with lights visible even from orbit. Cities sprawled across continents in organized patterns. Oceans reflected the sun. Green spaces were carefully maintained between urban areas. It looked nothing like the wild, untamed world his ancestors had recorded. Beautiful, isn't it? Thalos turned to see a man entering the room. He was older, with gray in his hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He carried a data tablet and wore casual academic clothing. I'm Professor G1. The man said. I study ancient civilizations and first contact events. I've been looking forward to meeting you for my entire career. Looking forward? Thalos asked. You knew we were coming? G1 smiled and gestured to chairs around a table. Not exactly when, but we suspected. Shall we sit? I have something to show you. As they settled in, other members of both delegations joined them. Envoy Krell, one of Thalas's diplomatic staff, took the seat next to him. A young woman named Suman sat across from them, introducing herself as a cultural liaison. A security officer named Hyunwoo stood by the door, relaxed but watchful. Jiwon activated the table's holographic display. An image appeared above it, rotating slowly in 3 dimensions. It showed a cave wall covered in paintings. This is from the Chauvet Cave in what we call France, Jiwon explained. It's about 40,000 years old. Do you see this section here? The image zoomed in on a particular painting. Among the horses and handprints, there was something else. A shape that didn't match any Earth animal. It was angular with 3 distinct sections that could be eyes. Thalas leaned forward. That looks like one of your ancestors, Jiwon finished. We have 17 sites around Earth with similar images. Your people didn't just observe us from orbit. You came down, you walked among us, and we remembered. The display changed to show more images, stone carvings, pottery designs, ancient texts from different civilizations, all describing similar beings from the stars. For most of our history, these were myths, Jiwon continued. Stories we told children. Legends about sky visitors who came and left. Then about 4,000 years ago, we started to wonder if the myths were real. About 500 years ago, we confirmed it. How? Krell asked, speaking for the first time. His voice was quiet, thoughtful. Suman answered this time. Genetic analysis. Your people left biological samples behind, probably by accident. A few skin cells here, some hair there. As our technology advanced, we found them. We sequenced the DNA. It matched nothing on Earth. We knew then that we weren't alone and that someone had visited us long ago. The display shifted again, showing a timeline of human advancement. Thalas watched as the line progressed from stone tools to agriculture, to writing to mathematics, to engines, to computers, to fusion, to faster-than-light travel. The speed was dizzying. We're not a patient species, Jiwon said with a slight smile. When we want something, we chase it. And what we wanted more than anything was to prove ourselves worthy. Worthy of what? Thalas asked. Of being noticed, Suman said simply. You looked at us and saw animals. That hurt. It hurt for 50,000 generations. Every time we told stories about the sky visitors, we added a promise. Someday we would show them they were wrong. Hyunwoo spoke from his position by the door. My grandmother used to tell me those stories. She'd point at the stars and say our ancestors were up there somewhere, waiting to surprise someone. I thought she meant heaven. Turns out she meant this. He gestured at the station around them. Krell was studying the timeline closely. This expansion happened so fast. We've been exploring space for 300,000 years. You've been doing it for barely 12,000. Yet your technology seems more advanced than ours in many ways. Not more advanced, Jiwon corrected gently. More desperate. We built everything with one goal in mind. Reach the stars before it's too late. Before we destroy ourselves. Before the universe forgets about us. That desperation drove innovation. What do you mean, destroy yourselves? Thalas asked. The display changed to show dark images. Ruined cities. Scorched earth. Mushroom clouds rising into the sky. We nearly ended our species at least 6 times, Suman said, her voice somber. Nuclear war. Biological weapons. Climate collapse. Artificial intelligence gone wrong. Asteroid impacts we barely deflected. And a solar flare that almost fried all our electronics. Each time we survived by the thinnest margin. Each time we learned and adapted. You used nuclear weapons on yourselves? Krell looked horrified. Twice, Jiwon confirmed. We're not proud of it. But we learned from it. Those dark periods taught us that survival requires cooperation. We unified our planet because the alternative was extinction. Thalas felt something cold settling in his chest. His people had never faced true extinction. They had never needed to unify under threat. Their progress had been steady, comfortable, safe. How many other species have you met? He asked. Hyunwoo answered. 89 confirmed contact events. We have treaties with 62 species. Trade agreements with 47. Military alliances with 11. 11 military alliances? Thalas repeated. Why would you need that many? 3 wars, Suman said flatly. 3 times we encountered species that thought humans would be easy prey. They saw that we were relatively young as a spacefaring civilization and assumed we were weak. She paused. They were wrong. The display showed ships engaged in combat. Human vessels moved with impossible grace, weapons firing with devastating accuracy. The battles were brief and one-sided. "We didn't want those wars," Jiwan said. "But we won them." Word spread. Now most species prefer to talk rather than fight. Krell was very quiet now, his expression troubled. Thalas understood why. They were seeing the pattern. Humanity hadn't just advanced. They had been forged in fire, tested repeatedly, and emerged stronger each time. "What happened to the species that attacked you?" Krell asked. "We helped them rebuild," Suman said. "After we defeated them, we offered peace terms. Fair terms. 2 of them are now close allies. The third is neutral but respectful. We don't believe in eternal enemies." Thalas stood and walked to the window. Earth turned below him, peaceful and organized. But now he understood what he was really seeing. This wasn't just a planet. It was the heart of an empire built by survivors who refused to quit. "You said you have treaties with 62 species," he said slowly. "Where does that place you in galactic politics?" Jiwan joined him at the window. "That's complicated. We're not the oldest civilization. We're not the largest. But we're the most connected. When the Galactic Council meets, everyone listens when humanity speaks. Not because we threaten them, but because we've proven we can solve problems others can't." "There's a Galactic Council?" Thalas felt his worldview shifting again. "Why weren't we invited?" "You were," Suman said gently. "About 20,000 years ago. Your people declined, saying you preferred to remain independent. The invitation is still open." Thalas closed his eyes. While humanity was crawling out of caves, his people were already in space. They had every advantage, yet somehow in the cosmic blink of an eye, humanity had not just caught up but surpassed them in influence. "I need to report this to my government," he said quietly. "Of course," Jiwan said. "But first, would you like to see more? We have so much to share. Our art, our music, our philosophy. We're not just warriors and builders, Commander. We're dreamers too." Krell spoke up. "I would like that very much." As they left the conference room, Thalas heard Hyunwoo quietly say to Suman, "Think they're starting to understand?" Suman's response was soft but clear. "They're beginning to. Wait until tomorrow. That's when it gets really interesting." Thalas pretended not to hear, but his hearts were already beating faster with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The transport ship was small but comfortable. Thalas sat near the window, watching Jupiter grow larger as they approached. The gas giant was even more massive in person than any image could capture. But what caught his attention were the structures surrounding it. Shipyards. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Each one was large enough to build vessels that dwarfed the eternal wind. And they were all active, sparks of construction lighting up the darkness like fireflies. "Welcome to the Titan shipyards," a new voice said over the intercom. "This is Admiral Bora. I'll be your host today." When they docked at the main command station, they were greeted by a woman in military uniform. She was shorter than Thalas expected, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. Several medals decorated her chest, though he didn't know what they meant. "Thank you for agreeing to this tour," Bora said as they walked through the station corridors. "I understand you wanted to see our military capabilities." "We wanted to understand them," Krell corrected politely. "There's a difference," Bora smiled. "Fair enough. Let me introduce you to Engineer Taehyun. He designs most of what you're about to see." Taehyun was younger than Thalas expected, wearing casual work clothes stained with grease. He wiped his hands on a cloth as he approached. "Commander Envoy, welcome," Taehyun said cheerfully. "I hear you're curious about our ships. Come, let me show you something beautiful." He led them to an observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see a ship under construction. It was enormous, easily 3 kilometers long, with weapons batteries visible along its hull and what looked like fighter launch bays dotting its sides. "This is the Indomitable," Taehyun explained. "She's a Dreadnought-class vessel. We're building 12 of them right now." 12? Thalas couldn't hide his shock. "Ships that size?" "We need them," Bora said simply. "Space is dangerous. Not all species are friendly." Taehyun pulled up holographic schematics. "Let me explain our design philosophy. When we encounter technology we don't understand, we don't run from it. We study it. We take it apart. We figure out how it works. Then we make it better." The schematics showed systems Thalas recognized and many he didn't. Power cores that seemed impossible. Weapons that bent physics. Shields that could probably stop anything the Velthari could throw at them. This energy matrix, Krell said, pointing at one section. That's similar to our own designs, but you've somehow increased the efficiency by a factor of 10. 12, actually, Taehyun said proudly. We realized you were routing power through secondary channels. We cut out the middle parts and went direct. Dangerous if you get it wrong, but very effective if you get it right. And if you get it wrong? Thalos asked. Then the ship explodes, Taehyun said with a shrug. We lost 3 test vessels before we perfected it. That's how we learn. Thalos felt sick. They experimented with technology so dangerous it could destroy entire ships, and they considered that acceptable losses. What kind of species did that? Bora noticed his expression. Commander, let me tell you something about humans. We're not reckless, but we're willing to take risks that others won't. Every advancement costs something. We just decide the cost is worth it. A young woman in pilot gear entered the observation deck. She had an easy confidence about her, moving with the grace of someone comfortable in low gravity. Admiral, the fighter is ready, she said. Excellent. Commander Thalos, Envoy Krell, this is Pilot Jisoo. She's going to give you a demonstration of our fighter capabilities. They were led to a simulator room where they could watch through Jisoo's fighter cameras. She climbed into a small, sleek vessel that looked more like an arrow than a ship. Through the screens, they watched her launch from the hangar. What happened next defied everything Thalos knew about physics. Jisoo's fighter accelerated to impossible speeds, then stopped instantly. She spun in place, fired at practice targets, and weaved between obstacles at velocities that should have crushed any living being. The fighter moved as if gravity was merely a suggestion. How is she surviving those forces? Krell asked, his voice tight. Inertial dampening, Taehyun explained. We figured out how to create localized gravity fields inside the cockpit. The ship can pull maneuvers that would normally turn the pilot into paste. The demonstration continued for 10 minutes. By the end, Jisoo had destroyed every target, avoided every obstacle, and performed maneuvers that seemed impossible. When she returned and climbed out of the fighter, she wasn't even breathing hard. Any questions? She asked with a slight smile. How long have you been flying? Thalos managed to ask. 5 years. I'm actually still considered relatively new. We have pilots with 20-30 years of experience. They can do things I can't even attempt yet. Thalos needed to sit down. Bora guided them to a briefing room and brought them water. I need to be honest with you, Bora said, her tone becoming serious. You're not the first species to come here with questions. In the past 50 years, we've had 7 different civilizations visit us. Some were curious like you. Others were less friendly. The 3 wars, Krell said quietly. Bora nodded. 3 times species decided humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated before we got too strong. 3 times we proved them wrong. I was fleet commander during the last war. We fought the Krell hegemony. She paused, noticing Krell's expression. No relation, I assume? None, Krell said. What happened? The war lasted 8 months. They brought 300 warships. We destroyed or captured 247. The rest retreated. We could have pursued and finished them, but we didn't. Instead, we sent a peace delegation. Bora's expression softened. Today, the Krell hegemony is one of our strongest allies. Their ambassadors' children go to school with human children on Horizon 7. You're saying you could have destroyed them completely? Thalos asked. Yes, but that's not who we are. We fight when necessary. We kill when we must, but we prefer to make friends out of enemies whenever possible. Taehyun added, besides, war is wasteful. All those resources spent on destruction could be spent on building, exploring, learning. We'd rather invest in the future. There was a soft chime. Bora checked her communicator and frowned slightly. Commander Thalos, I'm being told you've received a priority message from your homeworld. You can take it in the secure room if you'd like privacy. Thalos excused himself and entered the small room. He activated his communicator and waited for the connection. When the face of High Chancellor Vethis appeared, he looked grim. Commander, we've received your reports. The Council has reviewed all data about humanity. And, Thalos asked, though he already knew, threat assessment has been updated. Humanity is now classified as a Tier 1 civilization. Under no circumstances are you to engage in hostile action. Diplomatic relations are to be prioritized at all costs. Tier 1, the highest classification. The Velthari Empire was Tier 2. They had never encountered a species they rated higher than themselves. We made a terrible mistake 500,000 years ago, Vethis continued. We dismissed them as primitives. Now they've become something we never anticipated. Do not antagonize them, Commander. Do not give them any reason to view us as enemies. The connection ended. Thalos sat in silence for a long moment. His empire, vast and ancient, was afraid of these humans who had been living in caves just a cosmic moment ago. When he returned to the briefing room, everyone was chatting pleasantly. Jisoo was showing Krell holographic images of her fighter. Taehyun was explaining some technical detail to one of the Velthari engineers. Bora was smiling at something someone said. They didn't look like a terrifying military power. They looked like people, friendly, curious, eager to share their knowledge. That, Thalos realized, was what made them truly frightening. They had all this power, all this capability, and they chose not to use it unless forced. They could probably conquer half the galaxy if they wanted to, but they didn't want to. They just wanted to be respected. Everything all right, Commander? Bora asked. Yes, Thalos said, managing a smile. Everything is very clear now. The starship emerged from the void like a silver needle piercing through fabric. Commander Thalos stood on the bridge of the Eternal Wind, his 3 eyes focused on the viewing screen ahead. After 500,000 years, they had returned to the primitive world they once catalogued as unsuitable for advancement. Thalos remembered the old records well. His ancestors had visited this blue planet during a routine survey mission. They found creatures living in caves, hunting with stone-tipped spears and grunting at each other in barely coherent sounds. The report was simple. Intelligent life detected, but no potential for civilization. Expected extinction within 50,000 years. Now, as the Eternal Wind coasted past the orbit of the 9th planet, Thalos expected to find either nothing or perhaps some early settlements. Maybe the creatures had learned to farm. Maybe they had discovered fire properly. At best, he thought, they might have simple villages. The first alarm changed everything. Commander, his sensor officer called out, her voice shaking. I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Thalos frowned. Impossible. Check your equipment. Equipment is functioning perfectly, sir. I'm reading structures, thousands of them, orbiting every planet. And sir, there's something around the star itself. Thalos stepped closer to the sensor display. His skin turned pale blue with shock. The screen showed a vast network of platforms surrounding the system's sun, drinking its energy like a swarm of metal insects. Stations circled every planet and moon. Ships moved between them in organized patterns. Energy readings blazed across his screen at levels that made his own technology look primitive. This cannot be, he whispered. Run the scan again. Before the sensor officer could respond, every screen on the bridge turned red. A warning blared through the ship. Weapon systems across the solar system had locked onto the Eternal Wind. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Then a voice spoke through their communications array. It was calm, clear, and spoke perfect Velthari. Unknown vessel, you have entered sovereign human territory. State your intentions immediately. Thalos felt his heart skip. Humans. That was what the primitives called themselves in the old records. The cave dwellers. The apes. This is Commander Thalos of the Velthari Empire, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. We mean no harm. We visited this system long ago and have returned to check on its status. There was a pause. Then the voice responded, and Thalos could hear the amusement in it. We know. We remember. You catalogued us as unsuitable for advancement. We found that assessment disappointing. The screen shifted to show a space station larger than any city Thalos had ever seen. It rotated slowly in orbit around the 3rd planet, Earth. Lights sparkled across its surface like stars. Ships docked and departed from dozens of ports. A new voice joined the communication. This one was female and warmer. Commander Thalos, my name is Yuna. I'm a first contact specialist with the United Earth government. We understand your surprise, but I assure you we're quite real. Would you accept an invitation to dock at Horizon 7? We have much to discuss. Thalos looked at his crew. They all stared back at him with wide eyes. His military training told him to refuse to run to report back to the Empire. But his curiosity, the same trait that made him an explorer, pushed him forward. We accept your invitation, he said. The weapons locks disappeared. A flight path appeared on his navigation screen, leading them toward the massive station. As the Eternal Wind moved deeper into the system, Thalos watched in growing horror at what surrounded him. Asteroid mining operations that could tear apart moons, energy collectors that harvested solar radiation with impossible efficiency, defensive platforms that could probably destroy his ship with a single shot. And everywhere, ships, Not simple vessels, but sleek, powerful craft that moved with precision his own fleet could never match. How long have they been spacefaring? He asked his science officer. Analyzing their construction methods and technology markers. Approximately 12,000 years, Commander. Maybe 15,000. Impossible. That's a blink of time. We've been in space for 300,000 years and we don't have anything like this. As they approached Horizon 7, the station's true size became apparent. It wasn't just a station. It was a city floating in space. Through the viewports, Thalys could see gardens, buildings, transportation networks, all contained within a rotating cylinder that created artificial gravity. A docking pilot's voice guided them to a berth. The eternal wind settled into place with barely a tremor. Thalys gathered his diplomatic team and prepared to exit. The airlock opened to reveal a welcoming committee. At the front stood a woman with dark hair and warm eyes. She wore a simple uniform with symbols Thalys didn't recognize. Behind her stood several others, including a tall man with broad shoulders who watched them with alert but not hostile eyes. "Commander Thalys," the woman said, bowing slightly. "Welcome to Horizon 7. I'm Dr. Yuna. This is Captain Do-hyun, the station commander." Do-hyun nodded. "We've prepared quarters for you and your team. I imagine you have many questions." "Questions?" Thalys heard himself laugh, though it sounded strained. "I have nothing but questions. How is any of this possible? You were hunting animals with rocks. You lived in caves. You couldn't even speak properly." Yuna smiled, but there was something sharp in it. "We're very good at learning, Commander. And we had an excellent motivation. You told us we weren't good enough. We took that personally." They walked through the station and Thalys felt his worldview crumbling with each step. Markets bustled with activity. Children played in parks under artificial sky. Art decorated the walls. Music drifted from somewhere. And everywhere humans moved with purpose and confidence. "How many people live here?" he asked. "On Horizon 7? "About 2 million, Do-hyun said casually. "It's one of our smaller stations. We have 15 major orbital cities around Earth alone. 2 million. On one station." Thalys did quick calculations in his head. If this was a small station and they had 15 around just one planet, how many humans are there? He asked quietly. Yuna glanced at Do-hyun before answering. "In this solar system? About 40 billion. In total, across all our colonies and settlements? Roughly 300 billion. The number hit Thalys like a physical blow. The entire Velthari Empire, spanning dozens of systems, had a population of 80 billion. These humans, these former cave dwellers, had nearly 4 times that number. "This changes everything," he whispered. "Yes," Yuna said gently. "It does. Come, Commander. Let us show you what humanity has become, and perhaps you can help us understand where we go from here." As they led him deeper into the station, Thalys sent a priority message back to the Velthari homeworld. It contained just 5 words: "We made a terrible mistake." The ceremony hall was filled with beings from both species. Velthari and humans stood together talking quietly while they waited for the official proceedings to begin. Thalys stood near the front wearing his formal diplomatic robes. Next to him, Krell adjusted his own ceremonial attire, looking much more comfortable than he had when they first arrived a week ago. President Garam entered through the main doors. He was an older human with kind eyes and steady hands. Behind him came Do-hyun, Yuna, Admiral Bora, and several other officials Thalys had met during his stay. "Commander Thalys, Envoy Krell," Garam said warmly, extending his hand. "Thank you for spending this time with us. I hope it has been enlightening." "More than you know," Thalys said, shaking the offered hand. The gesture had been strange at first, but he'd grown used to it. "It was meant to show you carried no weapons, that you came in peace. We've prepared a treaty draft," Garam continued, gesturing to a digital display. "It outlines mutual respect, open communication channels, and the possibility of future cooperation. There are no demands, no obligations beyond treating each other with dignity." Thalys reviewed the document. It was fair, more than fair. It asked for nothing except that both species acknowledge each other as equals and keep lines of communication open. Trade was optional. Military alliance was not mentioned. Scientific exchange was encouraged but not required. "This is very generous," he said carefully. "It's what we offer to all species," Garam replied. "We believe the galaxy is better when we work together, but we don't force anyone into arrangements they're uncomfortable with. If you need time to consider, or if you need to consult with your government, we understand." Krell spoke up. May I speak freely, President Garum? Of course. My people were wrong about yours. Catastrophically wrong. We looked at you and saw primitives. We should have seen potential. We should have seen determination. We should have seen everything you would become. Krell's voice was steady but emotional. This treaty is more than we deserve. But I hope my government accepts it. I hope we can move forward as friends rather than remain strangers. That's all we want, Garam said with a smile. The past is past. We can't change it. But we can choose what happens next. The ceremony proceeded with formal readings and signatures. Thalos signed on behalf of the Velthari Empire, knowing his government would approve. They had no choice, really. Refusing friendship with humanity would be seen as hostile, and no one wanted that. After the official business concluded, the atmosphere relaxed. Food was served, human and Velthari dishes side by side. Music played softly in the background. People mingled and talked. Thalos found himself standing with Do-hyun near one of the large windows. I owe you an apology, Thalos said quietly. For what? For my arrogance when we first arrived. For thinking you were still the primitives my ancestors described. For underestimating you, Do-hyun shrugged. You weren't the first, won't be the last. The important thing is you learned. Some species never do. What happened to them? The ones who attacked us. We defeated them, then helped them rebuild just like we told you. The ones who just refuse to acknowledge us as equals, we ignore them. They become irrelevant while the rest of the galaxy moves forward. That's almost crueler than war, Thalos observed. Maybe. But it's honest. We don't waste time on species that can't adapt their thinking. Life's too short. A small human child approached them, maybe 6 or 7 years old. She carried a piece of paper and looked up at Thalos with wide, curious eyes. Are you the alien? She asked directly. Minji! A woman rushed over. I'm sorry, she got away from me. It's fine, Thalos said, kneeling down to the child's level. Yes, I'm the alien. Are you scared? Minji shook her head. No, my teacher says aliens are just people from other places. Like how my friend Junho is from Korea and I'm from Brazil, but we're both human. You're just from farther away. That's very wise. I made you a picture, Minji said, holding out the paper. For when you go home. Thalos took it carefully. The drawing showed stick figures holding hands, some with 3 eyes, some with 2. Above them, stars sparkled. At the bottom, in careful letters, she had written, Friends, not servants. Thank you, Thalos said, his voice catching. This is beautiful. Did someone tell you to make this? No, I just thought you might be lonely going home. Pictures help when you miss people. Her mother gently guided her away, apologizing again. Thalos stood slowly looking at the drawing. Something about it broke through all his diplomatic training, all his careful control. She just gave you the most important message of this entire visit, Krell said, appearing beside him. From the mouth of a child. Friends, not servants. Is that what we would have made them? Thalos asked. If we'd stayed, if we'd helped them develop? Probably. That's what most advanced species do. They guide the younger ones, which sounds noble, but it creates dependency. It creates a hierarchy. Krell looked at the gathering around them. These humans figured that out. They don't want to serve anyone, and they don't want anyone serving them. They just want equals. Yuna joined them, carrying a small bag. Gifts for your journey, she said. Cultural items, nothing expensive. Music, art, literature. Things that show who we are beyond our weapons and ships. Thank you, Thalos said, accepting the bag. He carefully placed Minji's drawing inside. I have a question, if I may. Of course. What will humanity do with all this power you've built? You have the ships, the technology, the alliances. You could dominate a significant portion of the galaxy if you chose to. Yuna smiled. We're going to keep exploring. Keep learning. Keep building. But not to conquer or control. We want to see what's out there. We want to meet everyone we can. We want to learn everything possible. And yes, we want to be ready if someone threatens us or our friends. But domination? She shook her head. That's not what we survived for. We survived to live freely, and we want that for everyone else, too. Even for species that dismissed you? Krell asked, especially them, because maybe they'll learn what we learned. That everyone has potential. That you should never underestimate someone just because they're different or behind you in development. That the universe is better when we help each other grow. The time came for departure. Thalos and his delegation were escorted back to the Eternal Wind. The hangar was crowded with humans who came to see them off. Workers, soldiers, scientists, families with children, they waved and smiled. "Safe travels," Do-hyun said, shaking hands one final time. "When you get home, tell your people they're welcome here any time. Not as superiors or inferiors, just as friends." The Eternal Wind undocked and began its journey to the edge of the system. As they passed Mars, then the asteroid belt, then Jupiter with its massive shipyards, Thalys sent his final report to the Velthari homeworld. It was longer than any report he'd ever written. He described everything he'd seen, everyone he'd met, everything he'd learned. He ended it with a personal note. "We dismissed humanity as primitives. That was the greatest mistake in our empire's history. Not because they became powerful, but because we failed to see what they always were. A species with unlimited potential and unbreakable determination. They are not our enemies unless we make them so. They are not our servants, nor do they wish to be our masters. They are our potential friends if we're wise enough to accept that friendship. I recommend we accept their treaty. I recommend we learn from them. And I recommend we never, ever underestimate anyone again." The journey home took several weeks. During that time, Krell spent hours reviewing all the data they'd collected, all the conversations they'd recorded, all the observations they'd made. When the Eternal Wind finally arrived at the Velthari homeworld, they found the High Council already in emergency session. Thalys and Krell were summoned immediately. The council chamber was circular with seats rising in tiers. 23 council members sat in judgment. High Chancellor Vethis sat at the center, his expression grave. "Commander Thalys, Envoy Krell, you have brought us troubling news." "Troubling, perhaps," Thalys agreed, "but also hopeful." "Hopeful?" Another counselor spoke up, his tone sharp. "They could threaten our entire empire." "They could," Krell said calmly. "But they won't unless we threaten them first. They have no interest in conquest. They've proven that repeatedly. How can you be sure?" "Because," Thalys said, pulling out Minji's drawing and displaying it for everyone to see, "their children draw pictures of friendship. Because they defeat their enemies and then help them rebuild. Because they've had the power to dominate others for thousands of years and haven't done it. Because everything about them suggests they mean what they say." The council debated for hours. Some wanted to prepare for war. Others wanted to isolate to avoid humanity entirely. But slowly Krell's arguments won them over. War was unwinnable. Isolation was pointless. The only logical path was the one humanity offered. Friendship between equals. The treaty was ratified 3 days later. On Horizon 7, Yuna received the news with a satisfied smile. She stood at the same observation deck where she'd talked with Krell, watching Earth turn below. "Did you think they'd refuse?" Do-hyun asked, joining her. "No. They're smart enough to recognize a good deal, and I think Krell genuinely understood what we were trying to tell them.